Alright, welcome everyone to a new Arma 2 series. I will be playing through Operation Cobalt. From what I've heard, it's a very, very good campaign, much better than what was included in the base Arma 2 game. So let's go ahead and hop into it. For timeline reference, I believe it takes place right after or during Harvest Red, but I'm sure the intro cinematic will be talking about that. Now, there's very little, if any, voice acting. However, I may or may not read the subtitles. Honestly, I read a lot faster than I can speak, so I might only get like 3/4 of the way through some of the subtitles before it switches. Also, I'll be playing on Veteran, just because, I hate playing on regular now. It's just not the same. I don't play on Expert because that limits some of my options I like to have, like playing in third person. Besides what I've said so far, ACE is enabled, ASAX is enabled, community-based add-ons is enabled. That's all I have mods-wise. Loading screens are fun. The ones for this are a little bit longer than I like, but, there's a lot of content, so we'll just get through it. Also, hopefully my voice to game sound ratio sounds good. I've readjusted it several times, and I think I found a good balance where my voice is just above the game volume, but we will see. My microphone likes to be dumb every once in a while and, well, readjust itself on its own accord. It's weird. For this first video, we'll be going through this intro cinematic, which takes a while, and we'll be going through the first level, which is training in boot camp. It's not really long at all, but we'll get through it, and it should be a good time. Zipper 5 presents. In association with OFPEC, the Editing Center. An Arma 2 user-made campaign. Operation Cobalt. Chernarus, my home. My name is Peter Novak. I have lived in Chernarus my whole life. Despite the beauty and serenity of the country, it has sadly been subjected to years of political instability and violence. Chernarus has become divided into three major political parties: the Democrats, who currently hold the seat of power, the Communists, and the Nationalists. The three parties have never been able to peacefully coexist. Since their creation, Chernarus' social stability has severely declined. In late 2008, just before the new year, the head of the Communist Party and his deputies were overthrown in a violent coup led by one Akula Lopotev. Lopotev had always had strong beliefs in radical communism in the old days of the Soviet Union. With him now in control of the Communist Party, they became increasingly violent. He renamed the party to the Movement of the Chernarus Red Star. We just call them the Chidaki.
Lopotev and his Judaki forces began their so-called ethnic cleansing with the aim of exterminating all supporters of other political parties. At first, they could be contained by the CDF, but they were somehow growing in size. Most believed the Russian Federation had gotten involved. Today, the CDF has fallen on hard times. There's a shortage of volunteers, as many do not wish to fall victim to Lopetev's murderous campaign. But someone has to step up and fight them. That's why, after my 19th birthday, I enlisted into the CDF. My parents were severely against it, but I was old enough to make my own decision. I did what I felt was right. Eventually, they came around to the idea, but never liked it. I can clearly remember the day I left home. My mother was determined to hold back the tears, but it was evident that she worried about me. Nevertheless, I went straight for the nearest CDF training camp. At the time, I had no idea what to expect, but I was not getting my hopes up. The island of Uts, just off the southern coast of Chernarus, had been deserted for years. The CDF decided to renovate it, thus the training facility was created. Uts was given an airfield and multiple bases, all at the disposal of the CDF. Unfortunately, when we were there, the budget for the facility was at an all-time low, and you could clearly see it from the state of the buildings. But it was still usable. You just had to ignore the peeling paint, the smashed windows, plus the horrible smell. We were to land at the airfield and meet up with our squad NCO, a Sergeant Thomas Novandi. We had never heard of him before, but we expected the worst. One thing we knew for certain, there would be no rest for us at all that day.
And here we are. This is all part of the introduction still, so once we're done with this section of the video, something to note, I probably won't be talking a ton in this series. Thinking I'll probably do voiceovers at the end for some of the cutscenes, but that's about it. You'll know by this point in the video whether I actually did that or not.
We ended up leaving even earlier than we had originally planned, sometime around 5 a.m. We were some of the only people awake on the airfield. All of us were tired, but we still wanted to be there. The anxiety far outweighed our tiredness that morning. Soon we would be in a war zone. It was a pretty surreal thought for all of us, especially considering we had little training. The CDF needed men in Chernarus, and we were the only ones on hand. I, for one, could not wait to get there. It was just one long chopper ride away. It seemed all I was doing since I joined the CDF was riding helicopters. Despite our lack of training, we all knew how to stay alive and how to fire a gun. Soon we would be putting that to the test. To say that Chernarus was not what we were expecting would be an understatement. We had all heard the stories from others of the fighting. We expected the same, but it wasn't what we got. It started out okay. We were assigned our many different tasks, but what we really wanted was to get into the fight. But command seemed to have other things for us to do instead. We were assigned the usual grunt work, guarding checkpoints, dealing with the locals, going on patrol, and so on. We were okay with it at first, but many days later we were still doing the same thing. One week into our deployment, while out on patrol, we would get our first example of what the Jidaki were capable of. The locals informed us about strange Jidaki activity in an abandoned factory near Orlovets. We figured it was a smuggling operation, so command set us to check it out. None of us were expecting to find out what was really going on. The Jidaki were long gone, but they made no effort to cover up what they were doing there. It was one of their ethnic cleansings. There were mass graves. There were bodies just left there, riddled with bullets. Only a few had actually been covered up. Shell casings littered the ground. No one was left alive. Some of us had a hard time stomaching what we saw. We were reminded why we were fighting, and now we wanted to kill as many of these Jidaki bastards as we could. The only problem was, we weren't able to.